Hi guys, my name is Emma and I have something I have to admit. Let's talk spooky stuff. So I feel like there's this thing looming over me that has been looming over me for many months, and today we're gonna rectify it. I know I'm not the only horror fan in the world who has not seen one of the classics. In fact, many of you guys who I've spoken to are missing a couple of movies that you just haven't got around to yet. Sometimes they get so hyped up and you never get around to them. And let me tell you, it is never too late. And today I'm gonna rectify the fact that I've never seen The Exorcist III. I'm a huge fan of the first one, but the third one just never got around to it. And I told you guys this many months ago, and a lot of you guys wanted me to do a video giving my impressions on The Exorcist III. So today we're gonna do a come chill with me style video. If you don't know, I've done a couple of these, especially during lockdown. So you guys can participate if you'd like. Let's go watch it. If you wanna pause it in real time, I'll let you know when. But let's go upstairs and let's get into it. So the first Exorcist was released in 1973. Of course, it was based on the book of the same name, which is quite similar to the film. This is Warner Brothers' highest grossing film of all time when adjusted for inflation. The movie is about Reagan, a 12-year-old girl who is possessed by a mysterious entity. And if you've seen it, you know this entity is called Pazuzu. I guess he's in it today as well. This is Gromit, if you didn't know, my greyhound. But today we're gonna watch The Exorcist III. I'm so excited, and to get into the mood, last night I watched the first two. I just finished watching The Exorcist, as you just saw, and of course I've seen this film before. I've seen it so many times, which is why it's such a shock I have not seen number 3. I love this movie. I just watched the director's extended cut, which I'm a big fan of, and I've seen this version and the theatrical version, both of them, many times, and I also listened to the audiobook this year, so that was exciting for me to revisit it after that. I felt like I just dissected it in a different way, so that was really cool. This film is such a classic for me, and obviously something I come back to all the time. I just love the complicated story. It's actually quite complicated. There's so many different plot devices that really join up, and it keeps the film so interesting for me. And I love the balance between it being such a conversational piece, but also there's a lot of action in there, but it really builds to it. I know it doesn't work for everyone, but it definitely works for me, and I know it works for a lot of you guys. I know that this one also has nothing to do with number 3, but I had to get myself back in the zone, and to do that completely, I'm gonna have to watch number 2 now. Full disclosure, I thought I had seen this film before, but my god, I think I would remember this, or have I blocked it out? What the hell is happening? If you haven't seen the second one, it goes into depth about Pazuzu. Let's just say that much. Pazuzu is the demon of the wind, and they mean that literally. Yikes. Absolute yikes. I just finished The Exorcist II. My lord, I didn't think that... It's hard to say. You know what's really weird about this film is that the first one, you know, with the pee vomit and the blood and the scene with the crucifix, that is subtle compared to this. What I like about the first film with how even it is between the action, the conversation, and the build-up, it completely lets go in this film. Very interesting though. I swear I've seen this film before, but maybe I hadn't, because there was a lot in there that I had no idea about. Obviously, they go into more history of Pazuzu, and they do this because a priest is brought on to figure out the mystery behind the exorcist, you know, the actual exorcist from the first one, and how he died, and what, you know, what the whole case was he was involved in. And then Linda Blair comes back, and yeah, it turns out Pazuzu is still within her. The ending reminded me a lot of Poltergeist, which is funny, but not in a good way. I like Poltergeist a lot, but that ending was something else. It really brought out all the stops, and was less scary and more like fantastical, like fantasy horror, in a weird way, you know, collapsing floors and opening buildings and lots of wind, pigeons flying. Strange movie. I'm gonna give that one... You know what, I want to give it a middle score. I'm going to give it a 5 out of 10. But back to future me, and let's finally check out Exorcist III.
So as you guys probably have heard, The Exorcist is actually being remade next year, which is a very big shock to a lot of people. I don't know, I'm kind of in the party of let's just see what happens. Obviously, the first one, as you've just seen, is almost perfection to me. So there was a TV series adapted that was released a couple of years ago. It was kind of a little bit different, but it did do very well. So we will just see. If we don't like it, we don't have to watch it. It's really interesting because in this video, I've already spoken about two, you know, kind of gatekeeping things the horror community likes to do. Number one, shame people for not watching the classics. And number two, get really mad about horror movies being remade. I would love to know your thoughts and opinions on both of those things down below. And I'd also love for you guys to let me know what classic horror movie you haven't seen. As you guys know, I like to go into most films pretty blind, and luckily for me, even though this film came out in 1990, the year I was born, I still don't know anything about it. I do know it's a standalone film, and I know it's directed by William Peter Blatty, which is so crazy because obviously he created the first Exorcist, the novel, and although he didn't direct 1 or 2, he's decided to direct 3. I also did hear, and thank God this doesn't ruin any of the plot, that John Carpenter was in talks to maybe direct this himself, but he actually declined taking on the project when he realized how passionate Blatty was about this film. I don't know. I'm a little bit worried because I don't know if you guys are always talking about this film to me and always suggesting it to me because you think it's a good time, or is it cheesy? It does have a 6.4 right now on IMDb, and I think that's pretty good for a sequel, especially a third film in the series, if you can call it that. Wasn't a huge fan of the second one, but I'm hoping I will like this film. You guys have really hyped this one up, so let's do it. Let's watch The Exorcist III for the first time. Woo! If you are gonna watch along with me, pause now. Holy crap! I just finished watching The Exorcist III. I have so many thoughts. I can't believe that just happened. Wow. I mean, should we start at the start? Let's try there. It's always a good place to start. The Exorcist III is connected to the first Exorcist and the second one. I don't know why I thought it was a standalone film. Actually, I will get to a theory why I do believe people say this. But let's talk about what the film is about. The film follows George C. Scott, who plays Kinderman, who is a police lieutenant trying to uncover the mystery behind some brutal murders. The thing about these murders is that they all connect back to the church in some way or another. But even more so, somehow they connect back to a deceased serial killer called Gemini. George C. Scott is amazing in this film, and I absolutely loved his role and the way he performed. This movie is based on a book called Legion by Blatty, which is why he's obviously so connected to making the film himself. And I looked it up afterwards, and this is what people think is the official sequel to The Exorcist. I never knew that. That's so crazy. I guess that's why sometimes it does hurt you to go in blind, because it's not like I was avoiding this film for so long, but I just can't believe that this is a true sequel to The Exorcist and I missed out for so long. As I said, the film is very much connected to what happened in the past, and in the first one, this takes place 15 years later and really draws some ties. I'm not going to spoil too much, but really relates what happened to Reagan and the demonic entity. Although it's really interesting because in number 2, obviously they go a lot into Pazuzu. In this one, they don't really, but they give it a new life. I'm so glad that I mentioned last night when I watched number 1 and number 2, comparing them, the huge difference, which was the amount of conversation, lead up, and anticipation they had compared to action. So the second one, all action, and the first one really holds back. This movie does that, and it does it so perfectly. They have so many conversational scenes that really drop a lot of clues, and then it just builds up to these intense moments. And I tell you what, I need to make that scene on this movie, because I had seen one of the reveals in this film, but I didn't realize it was from this film. And it's just so gruesome and terrifying. And they just had some really original jump scares that I just can't believe they pulled off. And they really do a good job of sucking the viewer in with the story before letting these reveals take place. I believe that people say that this is not connected to the first one, which is completely false, because of the direction it takes. Instead of being a possession film where, you know, the first one is very much drama horror, this one is more like a thriller crime, because you're following a detective through the investigation and trying to piece together some murders. So it feels a little bit more like Zodiac, and I think some people have related it to Zodiac because of the Gemini killer. And it feels almost like Saw at the start, but just seeing how people die and the kills and trying to link them together. And don't get me wrong, the possession is there, but it comes in a little bit later. But when it comes, wow, the build-up is so good. They give you exactly what you want, and I thought that there was some really terrifying and very surprising scenes in this film. Absolutely loved it. I was really blown away. At the start, I'm sure I included the clip when I saw the Jesus waking up. That was at the very start of the film, before the title had even come up. I was a little bit worried. I have to admit, I was a little bit scared. I thought maybe this was just cheese and you guys were having me on, but it turned out to be something that was really original. And as I said before, with all of the scares and the really intense scenes, very original, except I will say one of the last scenes when the lightning comes in, not a big fan of that. Not a big fan. But the anticipation and the tense build up, especially in like the hospital scenes, I thought was done so well. And I really enjoyed every moment. It was the perfect mix of being like a crime investigation and the payoff with all of the horror parts. It just meshed so well. And yeah, I definitely would say that this is the true sequel to The Exorcist. I read after the fact that Bloody wanted this to just be called simply Legion after his book, but because of marketing and because it does tie in, they wanted it to be called The Exorcist III. Bloody was against this because he wanted to be distanced from the second film. He even wanted it to be called The Exorcist 1990 at one point, but I guess they won in the end and they called it The Exorcist III, also known as The Exorcist III Legion. One of the things I absolutely loved in this film is the use of detail. Although it's only in a couple of different locations, there's a couple of reoccurring sets, everything in the background, to the roses, to like little knickknacks, really say something, and it has a lot of symbolic meaning. And also in the characters, they're quite detailed, all of the different roles, from like the strange nurse to the family. There's just something a little bit off and interesting about everybody. Everything is just original in its own way, and it was just fascinating to watch. I was really glued to it, not only watching the story unfold, but also paying attention to everything that was happening around him. It just felt so detailed, and like if you looked away for a moment, you may miss something. And let me tell you, this is definitely a film you need to pay full attention to, because if you're not watching, you may miss something. And that was something else. I was seriously blown away by moments in this film. It was so wacky, and I was just losing it. I even filmed this section when the scene when he ran back to the house. That's completely losing my mind, guys. Like, this was totally unexpected, and it was such a roller coaster from the start to the end. I felt like it was original in every facet, the characters, the story, and also just the plot points. It didn't go on a journey like the first one, where it starts obviously with, you know, her getting possessed and then, you know, the exorcism. This one just went all over the place, and you were really chasing him around as the lieutenant all the way to the end. You felt like you were there with him, and he was so likable that it was so enjoyable. Overall, I am very surprised and I am very impressed by this film, and I'm so sad I didn't watch it sooner, but hey, that's life, and I'm really glad I get to watch it now and can enjoy it probably more now for being the follow-up to one of my favorite films of all time. So The Exorcist 3 gets 2 thumbs up from me, and if you guys haven't seen it yet, I would say it's the official, it's the non-official, it's the official sequel to The Exorcist. And you know, guys, go out there, watch those classic films that you've been putting off for a while. You might be disappointed by the hype, or you might like them. And luckily, I'm the latter. So I'm gonna give this one a 7 out of 10. I know I was really hyped, but there was just a couple of scenes, as I said, the lightning I wasn't a fan of, things that didn't get me an 8, but I still really enjoyed it and I would rewatch this anytime. I hope you guys are having a great day. If you don't know who I am, by the way, and you've just watched this whole video, I'm Emma. I do 2 videos every single week talking about horror, talking about thriller, talking about anything spooky dooky, weird, wacky films. Love that. And if you want some recommendations or you just want to come and hang out with me and we'll go through some lists and I'll talk about some films I love and why, definitely subscribe and I'll talk to you guys very soon. I hope you're having a lovely day. Don't forget to leave the films that you have not seen, the classic ones that you may be a little bit ashamed to admit. Leave them down there. No gatekeepers in this community. And I'll talk to you guys very soon. Stay spooky. Bye.